Hi, I'm Neil Saunders and welcome to this week's edition of Retail Perspectives. What I want to talk about this week is choice in retail. Now, it's interesting because comparatively recently in history, if you go back to say the 1950s, there really wasn't a lot of choice in the things that we could buy. And even as you move through into the 70s, there wasn't that much product available. Actually, by today's standard, what we had to choose from was pretty restricted. Now, of course, as we all know today, we are really spoilt as consumers because we have a proliferation of choice. There are so many things that we can choose from. And actually, in that relatively short period of time, from the 1970s to now, there has been an explosion in the number of products. And it doesn't matter what product category you look at, there has been an enormous growth in the number of things we can choose from. If you look at milk, for example, back in the 1970s, you could probably choose from about 4 varieties of milk in your supermarket. Today on a supermarket shelf, you might find upwards of 28 different varieties. Women's hosiery, about 9 styles were available in the 1970s. Today, you've probably got, in a big store like M&S, about 126 styles. So enormous choice. And of course, if that choice gives you a headache, well, in the 1970s, you had about 12 pain relief pills to choose from. Today on the market, you've got about 161 different varieties. So it doesn't matter where you look, there is a lot more choice available. Now, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Well, it's probably a bit of both. Having choice is always good. It's good that consumers have competing brands. It's good that those brands exist and that they compete because they drive innovation and they move things forward. I think the slight downside, though, is that too much choice can be a bad thing because one of the problems consumers face today is a real restriction in terms of their time. So when they enter a store and they see lots and lots of product, they don't have time to sift through it and look through all of the different items to find the one that they want. So too much choice can actually lead to choice paralysis. It leads to the customer just freezing in front of a display of an enormous number of things. I think the other thing that's slightly bad about it in today's environment is, as well as having restricted time, our psychology has changed. We're not the kind of avaricious consumers that we once were. Yes, we do want to buy things, of course, but it's not about buying lots of stuff. For a lot of consumers today, it's about being more careful, and it's about buying the right stuff, which doesn't naturally lend itself to having lots of choice. So the challenge for retailers is to edit, and more than edit, curate an offer so that you're putting things in front of consumers that are actually relevant to them. And of course, that doesn't mean restricting styles absolutely, but it does mean editing it down to provide things that are relevant to your audience and things that they would want. And actually, in that sense, less can be more, because being confronted by 10 styles, all of which you may like, actually is much more choice than being confronted with 50 or 60, hardly any of which you do favour. So by editing down, you actually can provide more choice. The other thing that editing down does is it provides clarity. So you can provide a real sense of what an offer means or who it is targeted at. And in that sense, you can get much better buy-in and much better loyalty from consumers. And it's interesting because if you look at a store like Apple, Apple hardly has any product in their store. Their whole enormous sales base and their enormous profitability actually centres around a few really good, really innovative products. Now, Apple are an extreme, but they provide an example of how edited choice should be done in a store environment in a very compelling and very meaningful way. But the exciting thing is that actually there's probably a solution going forwards to providing lots of choice without providing lots of things, and that's personalisation. Now, one of the things we're starting to see in a very embryonic sense come through is 3D printing, and that provides a very exciting opportunity for retailers over the next 5 to 10 years to be able to provide very personalised products out of a base catalogue of product so that it's very individually tailored to people's needs. But even there, the key to providing what people want, whether you're editing choice or providing that very individualised product, is really understanding the customer. And that's something that hasn't changed from the 1950s, the 1970s to now. It's having a knowledge of what your customer wants and being able to implement that in product choice, in store environment and proposition that is the real key to success in retailing. And just as it's been in the past, it will be so in the future.